Well, hello everyone. It's great to be here. So thank you for the invitation to the IQ Media team. And yes, my name is Mattia. I'm based in London. I'm Italian, so also more on the Mediterranean side, as I think most of the people in the call originally. And yes, really looking forward to spend this hour with you talking about what we care about at the end of the day, which is journalism. Hopefully this works seamlessly as it should, and hopefully now you see the slides, which I'm going to start looking at. So unfortunately, I will not be seeing your smiley faces during this presentation, but you will talk and block me if you have any questions. But as Madeline said, after 15 minutes, I think, for the first part, I'm going to stop and we're going to start talking a little bit. Questions, of course, but also I want to hear your thoughts. This is about what we think about journalism and its role in society at the end of the day. So I'm curious to hear what you think as much as getting your questions from the presentation. So reinventing journalism, new ideas for a people-centric sustainable future is the title of the talk, and a few heavy loaded concepts in there that we're going to try to unpack during the presentation. We kind of went through the introductions already, just to add that I'm here with my role of a Knight Fellow for the International Center for Journalists. That's the fellowship I'm in this year, and I'm the founder of News Alchemist, which is a very funny position to be in, as I was saying yesterday on stage at this other event in London, because it's funny to be the founder of a project that kind of exists only in your head in a way, because it's a project I've been conceptualizing and creating during this fellowship, and I hope to turn into an actual project over the coming months. And I'll tell you everything about it, of course, in the next few minutes by sharing this time together. Just before we go into that, in terms of the agenda, Madeline said it already. We're gonna, go through me talking, some discussions, me adding a few more slides, and then questions again. And in the first part, really, we're gonna look at why do we need to reinvent journalism, in my opinion, and the concept of journalism as value creation. In the second part, I want to look a little bit at the concepts of value and the concepts of mission, how they are related and why they're so important, and why I think we need to spend much more time thinking and discussing about them. I hope this makes sense, but again, we're gonna have time to discuss, and maybe you tell me what it doesn't make sense in your opinion. I would love to hear that too. This talk, in essence, is like a presentation about this Venn diagram that I've been obsessing about over the last few months. I'm not going to leave you enough time to check it out. I'm just going to tell you this is going to come back, and it's really the protagonist of the show, let's say, today. But I want to start by looking at the title, as I said, of the talk, and in particular, one word, which is the concept of reinventing journalism, because it's possible that you came into the room asking yourself, what is there to reinvent in the first place? Why would we need to reinvent journalism? And I'm glad you asked. I guess I'm glad to pretend you asked so that we can talk about this a little bit. And I want to start by looking at some facts, let's say. I know that facts nowadays are not as important as they used to be, I'm afraid, but they can ground us a little bit in understanding the situation and the starting point to have a shared common understanding of where we are in. So a few headlines from a few months ago. They're not completely new, but still very relevant. Maybe you will say, unfortunately. So trust in media reaches new low. This chart is about the US, but as you know, is true in most countries of the world, maybe in all of them. News avoidance reaches new high. We can talk about if news avoidance is the right way to talk about this. I don't think so, but for clarity, let's stop here for the moment. And the news industry is off to a brutal 2024 start. Mass layoffs devastate publishers, raising questions about the future of journalism. This is not, I don't want to share this so that you have nightmares about your job tonight. Maybe it's too late for that. In that case, I apologize. But I think it's important that we start from this reality, because we need to agree on the fact that we really have a problem in this industry. They say that, the first step in solving a problem is realizing there is one. And that's why I really want to start here by really grounding us on the fact that there is something inherently wrong right now, right? With the industry we work in and we probably love and think is so important. Like, people don't trust us, the engagement is low, we're struggling to make money. So we have a serious problem here at stake, and we need to accept that. And I find it interesting to, having to accept this problem, because as an industry, we have been saying that we have been in crisis, journalism in crisis, for the last 20 years, probably, maybe even a bit more. And I'm not making up a number. You can literally Google journalism crisis, and you will find articles and research papers from 2 decades ago. And yet it feels to me that even if we agree that we are in a crisis and we have deep-rooted problems, as an industry, we're quite averse to consider any serious systemic change. So really thinking, okay, we have a problem here, we need to consider the foundations of what we do and how we can change if we want to solve the problem. While on the other side, we're quite keen in looking at the little cosmetic changes that make us feel like we are improving things, or at least trying. Maybe they give us also immediate positive feedback in a sense that we are improving things, but we kind of know that it's not really leading to any sustainable and long-term change, right? And I think this is a problem. It goes without saying. And I just want to bring an example of the cosmetic changes just to clarify. And of course, it's AI, one of the many topics, well, the one topic it seems like that we are caring about at this time. This is not to say that AI is useless. Far from me being an AI skeptic. Actually, during the last 5 years, I should have said in the phase of introduction, my role was to be the manager and the co-founder of a project called Journalism AI at the London School of Economics and Political Science. And so for years, my role was to be on stage and to be online, helping journalists understand the potential of AI, not just the risks that come with it, but understanding how we can use it and how we might want to consider using it to really improve what we do. And yet, when I started the fellowship earlier this year, I was meant to research more the topic of AI in journalism, but I wanted to look at it from the point of view of how can we use these new technologies to really create value for people, offer something new that people will appreciate and will start to kind of rekindling themselves to journalism, understand its value and trust it as well. But fairly quickly, I ended up writing an article with the headline, "It's not about AI, the problems we have." And in this article, I was arguing a bit provocatively that we have been getting this AI thing all wrong, or mostly wrong. And that was mostly because I felt, and I still feel, to be honest, that even if we are exploring now generative AI and coming up with experiments, we're kind of completely leaving the audience outside of the conversation. We're trying to use AI, and of course I'm generalizing a little bit here, to make our work more efficient, work faster, make it cheaper, all admirable things, but we're kind of those count as cosmetic changes to me, and we're going to continue looking into this idea during this presentation. In essence, I feel like we are tricking ourselves into thinking that we can solve our problems by just sprinkling a little bit of AI on top of what we do, without really accepting the fact that what we do is flawed in the same place. So no amount of AI or any other technology or method sprinkled on top will really make a difference if we don't start from the foundations and what is really problematic about our current situation, which we started from with those charts and headlines at the beginning. And AI is just an example. I just wanted to clarify what I mean with cosmetic changes with one example there. But I think at the core, the problem we're in, one of the main issues is that we really have lost touch with our mission. One of the concepts that I wanted to touch upon today is the concept of our mission. And if we haven't lost touch with it, at least we are a bit confused about what is supposed to be the mission of journalism. And I think we really need to spend significant time asking ourselves this question, and why do we really think journalism is so important in society, and what role do we want journalism to play in society? Because we tend to say that the mission of journalism is to inform the public about what is going on in their city, in their community, in the world, so that maybe they can make informed decisions with that information about usually who to vote in the next election. And that's not wrong, don't get me wrong, it's important to have that as part of our mission. I'm here to argue that just informing the public is not enough anymore. Maybe it was never, but certainly it's not enough nowadays. And that's because we really need to accept that information is valuable only if we help people understand what to do with that information so they can participate better in the community and in the public life. So a risk that I think is very much related, I should have waited a second maybe to switch slide, a risk that I think is very related with equating the mission with just informing the public, is that we fall into the trap of thinking that just providing and producing that information, the content, is mission accomplished. But I want to remind ourselves that journalism does not equal content. Let me explain. journalism manifests itself most of the time with some sort of content, whether it's an article we read, a podcast we listen to. But what journalism is at its core is not the content. And surely the mission of journalism is not to produce the content. That's just a proxy to what we want to achieve. So if we agree with this and with journalism is not content, what I think is the equation we really need to embrace and focus on is that journalism is a service. Is a service to people and society. We do journalism because we think it's important for the people out there, for ourselves as well, because we're not just journalism producers, we're also audience ourselves, and for society overall. And I think this second equation is extremely important, and we need to untangle ourselves from the first one, because only the moment we really understand that journalism does not equal content, we can get to be actually more creative and more innovative and more impactful about coming up with ways to do journalism that maybe are not content, because there's plenty of content out there and we're not going to stop doing it. Don't get me wrong. Like, we're going to continue telling stories, writing articles, helping people understand the world and informing them about what's happening. Since we said it's not enough, we need to think of journalism as a service to really embrace other ways of doing journalism that can help people. So if I had to put it like in a more clearer maybe way and describe it as my creed, I believe that journalism has the power, but also the responsibility to make a positive impact on society. We need to do this at different levels, like at an individual level by helping people navigate their lives, at a community, let's say, level by providing people with the information and the context they need to meaningfully participate in their communities rather than just passively consuming information individually. And then part of the positive impact society is, of course, strengthening democracy. So having an impact positive on society at an individual, community, and then also country level, state level, global level with their role in democracy. But I want to go one step further in the sense that I don't think these are just the right things to do. I think this is actually fundamental to our existence from a financial point of view, because I believe that this relentless focus on the value that our journalism create for people and for society is a necessary condition to guarantee the financial sustainability of the industry. Basically, if I had to put it crudely, if we don't create value for people with what they do, why would we expect them to want to pay for something that is not valuable for them? Mind you, I'm saying necessary condition, I'm not saying sufficient. We definitely need to continue doing more work and being smarter about how we can use technology, how about all the monetization techniques that can help us financially. But all those techniques, any technology, any new method will only get us that far if we're not providing value in the first place, because there's not going to be a product for people to want to pay for. And here's the Venn diagram coming back towards the end of this first part of the talk. Let me explain it to you. I put in the light blue bubble on the left all the things we do to create value for people, as I said. And we do already a lot of them already. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying here that, oh, the journalism currently in existence is useless. A lot of it creates value. Just not everything we do does. There are a lot of things we do in journalism that just floats in the dark blue background around it. Definitely not in the value, in the bubble, sorry, of value creation. And we should really reflect on that. In the purple side, in the purple bubble, there are all the things we do to grab people's attention and to make money. Some of them intersect the other bubble, and they do create value, actually, and that's the gold. That's where we need to focus on, and I'm going to come back to that in a second. But there are also many things we do to achieve those goals, money and attention, that are not really valuable for people, and we kind of know it already. The list is long. We can look at, catchy but misleading and sensationalistic headlines that maybe give us more clicks, more page views, but are not really actually creating value for people. Actually, they are misleading them sometimes. We can look at tabula feeds at the bottom of our web pages with like horrible and useless articles that are really detrimental to the trust of our brand. The list can go on, including something that is not related to content, things like invasive pop-ups and auto-playing videos that make the user experience so miserable, to be honest, for people, that why would they want to come back to our websites? Those are the things we need to stop doing and focus on the intersection. And we must focus relentlessly on that, creating products and experiences to similar but different words that create value for people and therefore help us our financial sustainability because of that value they create. Basically, we need to focus on that intersection. We need to identify what are the things we already do that exist in that intersection and do more of them. We need to come up with new ideas and new things we can do within that intersection. In other ways, we need to continue expanding that intersection to the point that it is all that is left, when everything we do creates value for people and for society. And therefore, once again, the theory supports our financial sustainability as a result of that. And I think this is urgent. I think this is important because, to be honest with you, I'm sick and tired to seeing charts like this every time the amazing work of the Reuters Institute, and they deliver a new report, and we see something like this, where more than half of media leaders from all across the world say that their company is focusing primarily on trying to get as much attention as possible. And more people honestly saying that they're doing this rather than saying that their company is focused on being more respectful of their audience's time. Enough, honestly enough. Like, we need to rebuild this connection with the audience, with the people. And if we're just thinking of them as eyeballs, as numbers, as bank accounts, and not as people, we're not gonna solve the problems we have at any rate. Now, you may be asking me now, how do we do this? And you're smart enough to not think that I have a ready-made solution and a ready-made formula to offer you. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I will be making a ton of money. But I've spent this year during the fellowship, and I hope to continue doing this work, surrounding myself with incredible people across the industry from all over the world, and trying to think really of how do we do this? How do we translate this theory and these ideas into actually action? Thinking, really understanding what can we stop doing so that we can make space for doing new things that are truly relevant for the people we aim to serve. I've called this group of people News Alchemists, and I describe this as a movement that helps everyone in journalism put people's needs and curiosity and the benefit of society at the center of everything they do. This is the project I've been working on, the project I'm the founder of, as I was saying at the beginning, and that I hope to continue in the future so that this initial group of people who came up with the concept and the vision for this can expand into a much bigger global community. Basically, I really want all of us, and you can be part of this, and you should be part of this, I hope, to work together so that we can learn how we can measure the success of our organizations, not just in engagement and profit, important things, but they're just proxy for our ultimate goal, the value that our journalism creates. And we need to learn how to measure that so that we can make every single editorial and business decision based on maximizing that value. So this is the work I hope to continue to do and that I want to also discuss with you today. If you're curious to know more about News Alchemist, there is a very basic page on Notion that you can get to through the QR code or by typing newsalchemists.org. Yeah, so I'm gonna just bring back the theory for a second because I want to clarify, maybe not go through a couple of concepts again, and also include some examples as we were starting to do in the conversation that I think are important. And then bringing back this slide to talk again about the value, right? Like I'm mentioning value a lot, you have seen the word value a lot in my slide, and it's fair to ask what that is. And once again, the next slide is not telling you value is, there's not going to be a definition, but the idea is really that we need to figure out that value, as we were saying right now in the conversation, right? We really need to understand how we can bring value to people, mostly by asking them and listening and what they have to do, because value and mission are so closely interrelated. Our mission is create value for people, as I said before. And creating that value, understanding what it is, will help us reconnect with our mission that, as I said before, we are a bit disconnected with or confused about. So these two concepts are so related that I think really just asking ourselves this question, what is this value? And it's going to be, the answer is going to be slightly different from all of us. There's not going to be like a unique definition for every single news organization out there. Hopefully we will have a more cohesive understanding of what that value is and how we can focus on it. But then every single organization will understand for its own audience and community what is the value and what they need. So it's a work we can do together, but it cannot be done once on behalf of all of us, let's say. And just to explain this further, I was at a conference, Splice Beta Festival a couple of weeks ago, and Rishad Patel and Alan Soon, the founders, if you don't know them, I hope we can invite them to speak at these masterclasses because they are the best. On their website, introducing the conference, they had this paragraph that I really love, where they were saying that the strongest media businesses understand that people don't buy journalism. They buy ways to solve problems they face, a way to improve their lives, a painkiller, status, to feel important. They buy things that create value for them, and the journalism is just a vehicle for that value. I think this is a great way to put it, and that's why I wanted to share it with you. And it's also a great way then to ask ourselves, if people don't buy our journalism, and we agree with that, what do we have to offer them? What value can we create for them? Again, like these are really the questions we need to ask ourselves to remember, again, journalism is not the end goal, it's the vehicle to the impact we want to have on society and how we hope to make positive change in it. And to clarify this concept, I wanted to bring some examples because, as I said, remember the intersection. I think there are a lot of projects and news organizations that already are doing amazing work at the intersection. And I wanted to look at a couple of them to explain better what it means to have as a mission statement, not the journalism, but the value there. But before we go to the news organizations, sorry, that was this slide first. I want to talk about Starbucks for a second. And I know this will make no sense in your mind, but I hope I will explain you why I want to talk about Starbucks. I'm Italian, remember that? So saying that Starbucks is good is definitely not something I should do. Italian coffee is the best. If I say that Starbucks is good, they're going to take away my passport. So that's not the point. But Starbucks understands something very well about their mission, even if they're, of course, a for-profit company trying to make as much money as possible. So different from us, it's not a service. If you look at the mission, and how they describe it on Starbucks, they don't talk about the coffee at all. And think of the coffee as the journalism, right, in this equivalence. Like Starbucks' mission, the way they describe it is with every cup, with every conversation, with every community, we nurture the limitless possibilities of human connection. Now, this is marketing copy. We understand it, so it sounds amazing. At the end of the day, yes, they sell coffee, but this is rooted into a real understanding that most people, I don't want to say all because it's always wrong to generalize, don't go to Starbucks because they find the best coffee at Starbucks. Most people go to Starbucks, and I will include myself sometimes when I'm traveling around the world, because you know that you find a very comfortable place where you can sit. Maybe you need to work there, and you're going to find very reliable Wi-Fi. You're going to be in a place where people are not going to kick you out after 5 minutes. You can stay for hours. Maybe you want to go there to read a book or talk with people, so the human connection. So you go to Starbucks and you spend the money on the coffee, but the value the Starbucks is creating for you is not really the coffee, is what brings there. So this is the equation for me to explain this idea of creating value and having a mission that is not centered on the journalism, or in this case, on the coffee. And bringing back the journalism, I have, if we have time, I think just 3 organizations, from 3 different continents that just by reading their mission statements online and also knowing about them and the people behind it really understand the same thing very well. And I'm going to start in Europe with Zetland, an fantastic digital native media from Denmark, who is one of the most successful membership models out there. And if you look at their mission, you see that they describe themselves as fighting for a public conversation motivated by insight and curiosity. So in their mission statement, journalism doesn't exist, pretty much. And then if we look at what actually they do and what they're proud of, they say, we received international acclaim for our audio journalism. All right, that's the content, and they're really good at it. But then with the user experience, the live journalism, as in the events they organize that people really want to participate in and that they get to monetize very well, and their groundbreaking work on establishing a business model for journalism. If you don't know Zetland, please go and check it out. Even just on their About page, the way they talk about their principles, it's inspiring, and there's a lot to learn from them. But the point is that they are acutely aware that their journalism, as in the content, is important, and it's very well done. But it's not the value they create for people. So they look already at how can we fight for a public conversation motivated by insight and curiosity. Doing some good audio journalism, writing some good articles is part of the equation, but they do very well so much more than that. If we move to Asia, I want to mention Rappler from the Philippines. You might know Rappler because it's the organization created by Maria Ressa, who won the Nobel Peace Prize recently. So they do amazing work in a very tough environment, and their journalism, as in the content, is very important, and it's amazing. But once again, their mission, they aim to speak truth to power, which is, as you know, like a fairly common way to describe also the mission of journalism. But then they also talk about building communities of action for a better world. This to me is fantastic and very powerful, and they put their money where their mouth is, as we say. So really they do this work, communities of action. So a lot of what they do helps people come together and become community, helps people understand how to take action, to participate in community, to ultimately build a better world. And will sound idealistic and naive, but they're just very honest and transparent about that's their goal. That's what they really want to do, make a better world through the journalism. So you will see that they mention that, okay, they're cutting edge stories. As I said, they're fantastics, but then the stories, but also conversations and collaboration. That's how they aim to achieve that. So the journalism, as in the content they produce, is only part of what they do, and they understand that very well, so they can create great value for people in a very tough environment. If you know what's been going on in the Philippines in terms of problems with democracy over the last decade or so. Third and last example, we're going to move to the Americas, to Canada in particular, with the Green Line, which is an hyper-local news organization from Toronto, created by my friend Anita Lee a few years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago. It's designed to support people in Toronto, and I love the way they've been creating their mission and what they do. So let's look at it. First of all, if you look at their website, you will see some Q&A, sort of, what's our goal, who are we, how did we start, and so on. And there is this sentence: we are on a mission to make important information less boring and more user-friendly, which I think is a great way to talk about one of the many roles that journalism can achieve, because you can do this and doing it incredibly well by not creating a single word of content, because you can do this by curating existing information that is already out there and helping people navigate what can help them and bring value to their lives. But of course, they create journalism as well. And with more time, we could look into their action journeys, which is a spectacular idea. But they also, if you go through the page, they say that the work that they do is to report on solutions, actions, and resources that help you become happier in your city. I would love to have news organizations, all of them, with their stated goal to make us happier. Not in a silly way, not by giving us only cat videos, but really by improving society, by making people happier, among other things. So we also create fun spaces, they say, where you can find your people and form a community. This is all journalism. They don't achieve all of that by just writing stories, which they do, and they do very well, but they do so much more of that. So these are just 3 examples. And of course, as we have seen, different environments, from a small country in Europe like Denmark, a bigger country in terms of population, at least in Asia, like the Philippines. The Green Line serves a single city. So this is to say, it doesn't matter what type of media organization you are. This mindset, this work internally to redefine your mission, to really highlight how do you want to improve your lives of the people you aim to serve, all of us, we can do it. And we can do it, and it helps us also think about how we can go beyond the content to then achieve our mission.